needed. My community is all electric. Second is going to be choice plans. So if the buyers are building from the ground up, they can choose their kitchen or primary bath at no additional cost. If they don't want a bathtub, they can get or they can get shower only. If they use the tub, they can get tub and shower. Same with the kitchen. They want the sink in the island, they can do that. If they don't, just all island, no sink at no additional cost. Third thing, and which is so great right now during these times, is our mortgage choice. So like Felicia mentioned, we have 4 lenders that work for every community. So your buyers are given so many choices as far as loan products and interest rate. If they use one of our mortgage choice lenders, then that's where the incentives come in. We don't know what they are for August yet, but the incentives are always great to use towards closing costs and or buying down the interest rate. So we don't have our own lender, we don't profit off of loans, but we use those lenders. And one of our lenders is here. China is here with US Bank. Thank you so much for coming to support, China. So again, we have 4 lenders. They're awesome to work with your buyers and get the best loan product, best loan rate for them, interest rate for them.
And again,
I'm glad you said all that.
What's the price point? Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
What's the price point of your community?
I'm like $480 to $540 out the door with option upgrades and lock premiums right now. And just like Felicia, we had an awesome month last month. I have about 20 lots left. So final opportunity.
What, and the name of yours is
Rosa.
Rosa? And yours is Highland?
The Sky Hills, Sage Point, and Sage Reserve.
Okay.
What are the total number of homes in both communities?
97 in mine.
Of course, if you're gonna throw me one question, it's over 200. I just don't know the final. I think it's 220.
Okay.
All right, one last question.
Do you have anything that is like a next-gen house?
We don't.
I do
She
somewhat.
has.
I don't call it next. We don't call it next gen.
Right.
But we do have the Somerset 2-story, 3191 square feet, 3179. The downstairs already has the bedroom 5 with an ensuite bath, and there's an option to add a kitchenette.
Wow, really? Okay.
This is really nice.
Yeah.
Thank you, ladies.
Good to see you guys. Thank you.
All right, Facebook check-in. So our rev-ups are going straight Zoom starting next week. No more live rev-ups. Everything will be via Zoom. This is our last live. It will be tomorrow. It's module 10. And then starting next week, we start with module 1. And again, we're Zoom only. We have a food truck out there in the parking lot, way out there. Got the world's best corn dog. How do I know that? Because it says it right. That's from 11 to 1:30. Next week's sales meeting, we're going on a road trip. So we're going to Summerlin because Tiffany Banks, she's the NBR CEO. She'll be speaking there at Summerlin. So go to Summerlin next week. And again, I think we're going to have a full house over there. Things that she's going to cover is, you know, everything that's on our mind right now is the NAR settlement, the fire brokerage agreement, legislative, and blah, blah, blah. And much more. All right, Super Summer Theater up at Spring Mountain Ranch. It's a blast. It's cool, literally and figuratively. If you've never been, you got to go. It's a great venue, and the play that's up there is School of Rock. That is August 10th. Tickets are $22.50 per person, and then the parking fee is $10 per car. If you want any information about that, you know, just let me know. Let Stephanie know. It's just a really, really cool, cool venue for those that haven't gone.
How do we pay you?
I don't know.
Well, that's the question. He's paying for everybody.
Who's that a question for? Stephanie?
You
You can log in, yeah, at supersummertheater.org.
Oh yeah, kids are welcome. You can bring a picnic. You can bring booze if you want.
It's not like the BBRA game. We require tickets
Right.
like last year.
Right. Yep.
We went last year and we had so much fun.
Yeah.
We brought charcuterie boards and sprucers and wine.
Who's been out there to Super Summer Theater?
We just saw Little Mermaid.
You saw Little Mermaid out there? Nice. Who has never been, has no idea what the hell this is?
It's amazing.
It's so cool.
It's at a base of the mountain, so it's really cool.
So anyway, it's really cool. It's a venue up in the hills, and there's a big amphitheater, big grass. You can bring your blankets, you bring your wine or beer, or your sandwiches, and just go up there and have a good time. We'll all get together and hang out. We are still collecting water, hydrating the homeless. You can see there's cases of water over there. It's hot out there. So, you know, if we could just do one little thing to help the homeless out by providing some water, maybe it'll help them out. One of our agents heads up this foundation, and he delivers water out to them all the time. So bring in a case or two of water. I mean, they're $3 or $4 at Walmart. If you don't want to, bring in some money and I'll go down to Walmart or Sam's Club and purchase the water. So, I can't believe I say that every time. Somebody comes up with one.
Yeah. I did.
Yep. All right, project back to school. They're collecting. You see the big bin up there. This is a list of stuff that they need, the kids need. Or you can grab a backpack from Walmart and stuff it full of that stuff and then bring the backpack up there for the needy, right?
Thank you.
All right, let's talk stats. Listings, first time I've seen listings into the 6,000 range in a while. 4,500 of those are single family. And the month's inventory is creeping up as well. That was down to like 1.7 just 6-8 months or so ago. A few weeks ago, that was 2.2, and now it's 2.7. A few weeks ago, the listings were 5,800, and now it's 62. So listings are creeping up. Are we still seeing multiple offers? Yeah. Still seeing multiple offers. Why is that? Because we're still in a seller's market. Whenever the inventory is that low, we are in the seller's market. Once we get above 4, then you're getting out of a seller's market. So I think that'll be a while before that happens. All right.
Are you ready?
This is what you're all here for. So just to let you know, what we're doing is we're going to do the buyer broker presentation. And then we're going to go over the actual BBRA, the buyer broker agreement. But you need, and I've been telling everybody for months, that you need to have a good buyer presentation, which leads into the BBRA, the buyer brokerage agreement. So let's get started.
Okay, this is going to be a condensed version because we want to concentrate on the form itself. I've been using buyer broker agreements probably for 5 years now. It's part of my buyer presentation, so it's just an easy transition how to get it signed. Okay.
So we're going to do a role play.
Role play.
All right, of the actual buyer presentation that Linda's been doing for X amount of years. Thank you, Linda, for doing this for us. So, ring, ring.
Hi, this is Linda.
Hey, Linda, you were referred to me by John, and she said, John said that you're a really good agent, and I'm looking to buy a home.
Wonderful. Thank you for calling me. A couple of questions. Are you going to be paying cash or financing?
I'm going to be financing.
Okay, great. Have you met with a lender yet?
I have not.
Okay, that's no problem. So what I'd like to do is have you meet with me in my office. We'll go over the home buying process, market conditions, your wants and needs, and my services. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Okay, see you on so-and-so date.
So that's the actual appointment.
Yeah, so just to emphasize, even though they're not pre-approved, a lot of agents won't meet with clients that are not, but this is an opportunity for you to establish that relationship. So grab onto it. If they're not pre-approved, it's okay. Hi, Mark.
Hi there.
Nice meeting you.
Nice to meet
Thank
you
you
as
so
well.
much.
I've heard so many good things about you.
Oh, thank you.
She's shy.
Okay, so as I
Shy is not a word I
mentioned,
use for her.
the home buying process. So, since you are financing, the most important thing is for you to meet with a lender. Not only does this establish your budget, it also determines your house payment, how much money you're going to need to bring to the table at closing. But just as importantly, we will get a pre-approval letter. And when we submit an offer, we're going to submit the pre-approval letter too, so that the seller knows that you are at least meeting with the lender and you can move forward.
Sounds good.
No seller is going to accept an offer without a pre-approval.
Okay.
Okay. Then we view properties. When a contract is accepted, be prepared to wire your earnest money deposit to the title company. The title company perfects the transaction. They handle all the monies that are transferred.
She has all this written down.
Yeah, and that goes in my buyer folder.
You need to have something like that so that you're not missing anything, all the points that you need. And all she has is the points.
Yeah.
She has the points there, and then she expounds on it.
Exactly. Because you are financing, the lender will contact you to complete full loan application and for the appraisal to be ordered. The appraisal is an upfront fee. All lenders need it, and they will start the process once you make that payment, so you can't delay on that. Then you'll also have your due diligence period. This is where you get your inspections done. This is where you check the location, airplane noise, anything that you feel necessary to determine whether this is the house you want to buy. You do that in your due diligence period. Near closing, the title company will make an appointment for you to sign not only your loan documents, but your title documents, and they will tell you how much you'll need to wire, the balance that you need to wire. Prior to closing, we'll have our walkthrough and you'll order your utilities. Remember, no deal is done until it records. Do not open credit cards, buy items on credit, or have your credit pulled until you have closed on your home. Once funded, once the lender funds the money and you have your money, title will submit to the county recorder's office for recordation of the legal transfer of ownership. Once recorded, you own the property. Then I will meet you at the house to obtain the deeds, and then we celebrate.
Keep in mind, this is very abbreviated
Yes,
because we
yes.
want to spend some
Exactly.
time on the actual form.
So,
She gets into every single one of these points a lot more in
Exactly.
the actual appointment.
Exactly. So,
Yep.
I know that this seems very overwhelming, but me as your agent will be with you every step of the way. Okay?
So do you modify that when you have a more experienced buyer?
Even if I have experienced buyers, I still go over it
You
with them.
stick the same?
Yeah, absolutely. And that will be one of the questions I ask, have you bought before? And if they say, yeah, but it's been a while, yes, I know this, but I will, and if they don't wanna go over it, I still hand it to them so that they know that they can't say, come back to me and say, well, I didn't know. Okay, market conditions, we just went over it with Mark, so I'm not gonna go over it. I go over market conditions with them to let them know. Even though it's a quote seller's market, I let them know there's still a lot of activity going on. There's still a lot of buyers and sellers. Okay. So the next thing we're gonna do is talk about your wants and needs. Buyer needs worksheet.
You can get something like that, you know, go to my favorite is the Google, and just Google, you know, buyer intake worksheet or something like that. Or go to breakthroughbroker.com. They have something like that.
Okay,
And there's a lot of different places that you can find that.
What's the best email to communicate?
It's mark@markotero.com.
Okay, perfect. And your phone number, I have. Okay, ideally, how many bedrooms would you like?
I would like a 4-bedroom.
Okay, baths,
3.
garage,
3.
and a range of
Got
square.
it. That's a must-have is the
3
garage.
must, okay, must. Square feet, ideally.
Somewhere, oh, excuse me, my phone's ringing.
Okay. Do you need to get
Somewhere above 2,300.
2,300 plus, okay. Would you like a pool?
No,
No pool. How do you feel about HOAs?
I'm fine with them.
Okay. And number of stories?
Single story.
One story.
I'm getting old.
Okay. And age of home?
Newer home.
Newer?
Last 5 years or so.
Okay. And would you entertain also brand new homes?
Absolutely.
Okay, perfect.
I hear Beezer is really good.
Yes.
Oh, they're gone.
How about gated?
I'm fine either way.
Okay, okay. Okay, not necessary. And is there a specific area you would like to live in? I have a map here. If you want to just show me some of the areas.
Is this kind of like show me where? Never mind. I would like to live up in the northwest.
Northwest, okay, we'll concentrate on that area. I'll look for new homes as well as resale homes in the Northwest.
That's a really good idea.
I have a laminator at home. My kids make fun of me. I laminate everything. Okay, and then I know you have not met with a lender, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a couple of cards. You could reach out to them, or you could check with your bank, credit union, shop around, and then determine which one you want to go with.
Which of these is best? You know you're going to get to ask that question.
It depends. It depends on the loan program. I've worked with this lender. My clients have been satisfied, but I do encourage you to also check over. Okay? Price range. What do you think you'd be comfortable in?
I'm thinking $500,000 to $600,000 range.
Okay.
Well, that's 3-car garage.
Yeah, exactly.
In the northwest.
And ideally, when would you like to move in?
Whenever, I'm ready.
Okay, so
Fine.
you don't have to get out of a place.
I'm on a month-to-month.
Okay, month to month, okay. Anytime soon. Okay. And then, size of lot, do you mind what, is there a particular size of lot? Like you don't need to be on
I don't
half
want
acre?
super small, but
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
4,000 or 5,000, 6,000.
Okay, perfect. All right, so what I'll do is once we get your pre-approval letter, I'll get a search going for these parameters, and then we'll do an automatic email. Anytime a new property comes up, you'll get it. And then we'll set a date and view properties and go from there.
Can I interject something?
Yes,
This is something that I would do at this time,
tell me.
is I would do a search right in front of them. Put these parameters that they just gave you into the MLS, because the consumer thinks that this thing that we have control of has an infinite number of homes. If you put their parameters in there, they can see that it's, 4, 5, 6 homes.
And I've been doing that. I would save a room and then I'd pull it out, just to let them know, not only availability, but what the prices are going for.
Yep.
So, yes, thank you. Okay, now we're gonna talk about my services. I just have a brief bio on me. I've been an agent since 2004. I've lived in the Valley for over 40 years. I served on our grievance committee. I currently serve on our professional standards committee. That's part of our organization where we need to have hearings if somebody does something wrong. So in order to be on that, you have to be an outstanding agent. So
I hear you are.
I pride myself on doing that. I work in the best interest of my client. I know a lot of people do this, but when I sign up with a buyer, I only work with the buyer. If I sign up with a seller, I only work up with the seller. But there's ways to still continue the relationship with me keeping it separate from each other. Professional, knowledgeable, and exceptional customer service. And I also listed some of my Zillow reviews so you could read at your leisure. I have a brochure here that has some of my bullet points on who I am and how I work. And then what I do want to
That's cool too.
I just made those on the computer. I know I could order them, but.
Oh, it's very, very nice, very professional.
But I have on here tips when you're, tips when, if you're selling and tips when you're buying, and that I will recap. Okay.
I just put my phone on silent.
Thank you. So part of my service, we have a form called Duties Owed. This is not a contract, but it outlines my duties to you as an agent. And then what I do, because we're recapping, I read everything. I read this whole form to them and I sign.
You let them know I have duties to you as my client, but I also have duties to all parties. The other client, the buyer, the other agent, you know, so.
Right. So do you have any?
It's an important form.
So I read the documents to my clients so that they can never come back and say, well, I didn't know. When I send digitally any forms, I tell my clients, before you click on anything, we're gonna sit in front of the computer and we're gonna go through every form. Every page on the RPA, every page on the listing agreement, every page on the disclosures. Because then they could never come back at me and say, well, you didn't tell me. So it's just.
That's really, really important because with these digital signatures, we're just sending documents over and it's expecting them just to sign, and they don't read it. So just like if you're meeting with them one-on-one, you're reviewing those documents with them, you need to do the same thing if you email for digital signatures.
Well, I take that back. When it gets to escrow terms, I say, here are escrow terms. I'm not gonna read them to you, but you need to read them. So I take that back, not word for word, but I highlight every single important aspect of each document. Okay, so any questions?
No.
Okay, besides. So what we have here is that formalizes my relationship with you is the buyer's brokerage representation agreement. This establishes that you're my client and I am your agent and we are going to work together. And then I go through the form, properties, residential, if it's, this is a new section, the one property only, so I haven't used that yet. Length of agreement.
So this is the brand new buyer brokerage agreement. And doesn't mean it's not going to change. It could change next week. This has changed several times over the last couple of months. They rolled out a 5-pager at first, which was horrible, and I guess we just kind of copied what California had done. And California got a lawsuit because their buyer brokerage agreement was so complicated. So, we decided to simplify it, or I wasn't involved in that, but LVR decided to, and frankly, this is way better than that lame ass 5-pager that they had. It was bad, so.
Okay, so we have here length of agreement. I'm thinking we'll do 6 months because you are interested.
Let's back up here just a second. So let's go to the available cities. What are you going to put in there? You're going to put just Las Vegas? What if they want Henderson? What if they want North Las Vegas? Some people will put Clark County in there. Some will put, the Las Vegas, anything in the Las Vegas Valley, they'll put that. Just be kind of aware of when you're putting something in there, what area.
Don't limit yourself.
If they're just Las Vegas, and you know they're just Las Vegas, you can put that in there.
Can you put greater Las Vegas area?
Sure. Yep.
Okay, and then
I'm assuming that's what I.
You can also do this report. Okay, so this. I get asked this question: what time frame? Should I do it for 6 months? Should I do it for a year? And my favorite answer to most questions is, it depends. It depends. It depends on that particular client that you're working with. You may want to do it for just one particular property. You may want to, if they're really hesitant to sign anything. Just say, let's just do it for this particular property. And then you're building rapport up with them when you're showing that, and then you can talk about a longer agreement after that. But here's also what I recommend, is talking about what's going on in our industry. I would start with, it started with a lawsuit in Missouri 8 or 10 years ago, whatever it was, and then explain that our association, NAR, National Association of Realtors, don't use acronyms, say it out, that they did a settlement, and part of the settlement was it requires us to get this form, and it's not just me, it's not just my company, it's any agent that you deal with. They are required to get you as a buyer to sign this buyer brokerage agreement. So just kind of just spell it out. Go back 8, 10 years and explain what's going on, and then bring it to today.
Right.
This is what we have today.
Right. And that's, I was gonna mention the broker fee. I was gonna bring that in there. Okay, so we're gonna do 6 months since you have some time and you're thinking about new home builds. Okay, broker fee, section 3. So, this is when I was going to talk about the broker fee, how it's now between seller and broker, seller and buyer, and not broker to broker. So he just basically said what needed to be said.
Yeah, you can also add in there, as also part of this settlement, is that the commissions for the buyer side, the buyer's agent side, used to be in the multiple listing service. They're not anymore. It's negotiated now between the buyer and the seller. And what we're going to do is, when I write an offer for you,
you're stepping into my presentation.
We're working this together.
Sorry.
It is, and that's when you pull out the purchase agreement and show them where it's listed in there.
So, just to recap, so broker fee, I will read them this paragraph. Buyer agrees to pay broker as provided below the broker fee for any properties involving the broker's efforts under section 5. The broker fee is not set by law or by any realtor association, is fully negotiable. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a percentage here of my value, what I think should be compensated and working in the transaction. However, I want you to be assured that in the new residential purchase agreement, which is the form we will be using to make your offer, on page 2, item 2, buyer representative, buyer broker compensation. At the close of escrow or the exchange of subject property, seller shall pay the buyer's representative, buyer's broker, percentage of the gross sale price of the property or a flat fee. Upon execution of this residential purchase agreement or subsequent counter, this clause is no longer negotiable exclusively between buyer and seller, and any modifications thereafter must be ratified in writing by the buyer's representative broker. So what we're going to do,
it's of the purchase agreement.
the purchase
You don't have the purchase
agreement.
agreement.
The purchase agreement has been revised. So what I'm going to present, we're going to put three bananas here, and it's going to match the 3 bananas on the purchase agreement. However, because it's negotiable between the seller and buyer, the seller is going to get your purchase agreement. They may say, I don't want to pay 3%. So I've had in additional terms, and I checked with Mark, he said this is okay. Additional terms to buyer broker agreement. If seller, including new home sales developers, offers percentage from 2.5% to 3% for buyer representative buyer compensation, buyer agent will accept that amount. Buyer does not have to pay the difference, and no further documentation to this effect will be necessary.
So basically what that says, if she put 3% in her buyer brokerage agreement as a percentage, but she was only to get 2.5% from the seller. She's not going to go after the buyer for the additional amount. Now, here's the thing.
Where's that verbiage?
Some, it's not, it's her verbiage, we can get it out to you if you want. Here's the thing. That's considered a range, all except between this and this. And when we were down at LVR, they were saying ranges aren't allowed. But I went to an ABR class last week with Jimmy Day, and he was teaching right out of the NAR, National Association of Realtors, book. And and a couple of us questioned him on it. And he said, no, this is NAR. This is what NAR is saying. So I will find out in writing. I reached out to Jimmy, and where the range is okay.
Because,
So
yeah,
a lot of what we're hearing right now are opinions. You know, we're not actually hearing, you know, the actual verbiage out of the settlement. It's opinions from, you know, and from knowledgeable people. I'm not gonna, you know, it's people down at LVR, you know, some of those are way smarter than I am, but, you know, I gather my information from a lot of people. And Jimmy, you know, and like I said, we said, hey, this is what we're being taught. This is what we understand. He said, oh no, this is, and he showed us the book.
So can that all be negotiated now when you're submitting an offer? Can the seller say, well, I don't want to pay?
Absolutely.
Yes. So
they'll put
in.
So here's the thing. It's just like closing costs. When you write up a purchase agreement and you're asking for the seller to pay closing costs, it's a negotiable item at that point, right? The seller could say, no, I'm not gonna pay $10,000, but I'll pay $7,500. It's negotiable. The same exact thing with, so if they say, I'm not gonna pay 3%, I'll only pay 2%, then you're going back to the buyer and say, this is what they're saying. What do you wanna do?
Exactly.
In an addendum or?
On a counter.
Counter.
At that point, you don't have an accepted offer.
Right.
You're countering back and forth.
So let's say that, I was talking to Jeff about this the other day. What if it's 4%?
Okay,
You've
I'm
already
gonna address that.
agreed to 3%.
Yep.
Bananas.
So the
Three
reason.
bananas versus
She got some, we can talk percentage here, we're a company, so.
So the reason why I put in here, and no further documentation to this effect will be necessary, because when I took the class at LVR, they said if anything deviates from the amount you put here, then you have to have a new buyer-broker agreement.
Or an addendum to
Or
the buyer
addendum to
broker.
it. So on my additional terms, I just say, and no further documentation to this effect will be necessary. Now, on this buyer-broker agreement on section 8, page 2, the last sentence says, broker will not retain any amount from any source that exceeds the amount agreed above. Well, the same premise, I don't want to write a new broker agreement, so I have in my additional terms, if seller, including new home self-developers, offers any amount over the 3% commission for compensation, the excess will be retained by buyer representative, buyer broker, and no further documentation is required to this effect. This page will be included and is considered part of buyer broker agreement. They have to sign acknowledging it.
So I am checking with people on that verbiage there to see if it is okay to keep, because that is part of the settlement that I know that it does say that you can't keep the additional, but some people are saying, yeah, if you get the buyer to agree to it, then you can. So I'm checking with some people to see, you know, get their opinions on that as well. Kathy. Who knows Kathy? Kathleen, I'm sorry.
Hi, I'm Rob Title Escrow. We may in escrow require, if there's a negotiation change, written instructions to change through escrow. And also, will we be getting a copy of this in the opening? So we know if the buyer's paying anything,
So you want a copy of the buyer brokerage agreement?
so we know what we're charging.
Sure, yeah. But it's gonna be in
Yeah,
the offer and counter offers. Because whatever is negotiated in the offer and counter is what it's going
It's
to
gonna
be.
be in the RPA, that
Yeah.
paragraph,
Yeah.
yes.
Now it's part of the.
Damon?
Question being, so we have a contract, this is gonna be an important question for escrow, is the seller's paying 2%, buyer's responsible for 1%, or doesn't matter amount.
Yeah.
How is escrow going to hold buyer accountable to pay that amount?
I guess at that point, you're gonna need the,
Are you guys going to be able
We'll
to?
probably ask because this breaks it down.
so
I
here's,
just had one that was,
Yeah.
Seller paid 2, buyer will pick up the 0.5.
Has to be in writing.
so,
And then-
yeah.
But the
So
que-
this
the
que-
question being, is escrow going to be able to hold the buyer accountable with the brokerage agreement between the buyer and the broker? Are you guys going to hold that as?
So,
What
so
I did
what,
was end up making a commission
Yeah.
instruction for the buyer that the buyer signed and the broker.
so what if the buyer, all right, so what if the buyer is going to pay all of the commission? They agreed to it, that's what was negotiated in the purchase agreement, and we get to the closing table. And the buyer says, I'm not gonna pay that $15,000. What do we do then?
Already in writing.
We can't hold up the closing.
What?
We can't hold up the closing for that.
Yeah.
No, but we know if escrow is going to hold the buyer accountable with the broker agreement is the biggest question
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if they say we're not paying that 15,000,
Yeah.
and we're contacting the agent broker saying, what do you want us to
Hopefully, we're
do?"
sitting there.
Yeah.
Right?
Mhm.
What do you mean,
And
hopefully?
Mark, now you're saying we can't hold.
We can't
closing,
hold
but
that up.
but that changes.
Yeah.
Because this is now a term of the contract.
Yeah.
Right.
So
I
it's
agree.
possible that changes what we've
Yep.
been taught, which is don't
Yep.
hold up the
This-
closing, go get your commission from the other agent or
Yeah,
whatever. but now
this
it's
is
in the
what
contract.
they said at LVR,
So you mean we can sue
that,
them within that 30
and they were all in
days,
agreement on
10%?
this one.
So you mean we can sue them within that 30
Yes.
days to 10%?
Yeah,
Have to sue them, is that what you said?
yeah.
So,
Now technically, it's the broker that's suing, but agents can sue in small claims court.
Okay, so then if you win, then you have to lien in the house.
I'm not an attorney.
so here's another thing. If we present our offer and we ask 3% to the seller, and the seller comes back and says, I'm not giving anything, or 1%, then you have to present that to your buyer, and you have to let them know they're coming, it has to be in writing, their response, counter. Then the buyer has to decide whether they're going to pay it or they're going to cancel the agreement.
Okay.
Just
You
like
let the
closing
buyer
costs.
decide
Right.
what to do, just like closing costs.
Damien.
Has there been any big, or small ones, I guess, lawsuits
No.
in some of the states that have already started doing this?
I'm not sure, but I don't think so. There was a question over here. Kathy?
Does that only apply that 3% the buyer is paying if it's not in the contract? So if it was 1% they were paying and then 2% the seller's paying, it's in writing, so it holds them to it. You just got done
Right.
saying, we can't hold them to it, but that
We
would
can't
only.
hold up closing.
We can't hold up closing, but that's only if they're paying everything, not that it's part of the contract.
Either way.
Everything has to be
Because it's still part of the
contract
contract.
now.
Yep.
The commission station, it was never part of the contract, now it is part of the contract.
Now it's part of the
because
Right, yeah, no, I'm only.
Because it's part of a different contract. It's
If
part
the
of
seller
the
doesn't want to.
So it's still a contract.
Can it be incorporated into closing costs, like is a lender going to loan on it?
They're not gonna loan on it, but can you raise the sales price? Yeah, but it still has to appraise.
Okay, I was just going back to escrow, because I have always used a BBA as well, and I did have that scenario, and it was before this change went over and I closed, and the buyer did end up paying my difference on the actual, commission difference. And
Good.
I did get a call from escrow, and they hadn't dealt with it, and even my TC was like, I don't even know how to do this. I'm like, well, I have a BBA, you can go ahead and see it, submit it with the offer, so you can see they can add it to the actual closing disclosure. They added it on there. They said they're gonna go ahead and reach out for my buyer to sign off that he's gonna have an additional difference of the buyer's brokerage, which was like, 0.5% or whatever it was, because it was 3% for me, and they were only offering like 2.5. So he did sign off, it was added to the actual closing, and then they were able to submit, but he had to sign off. And he did call me on it when he was closing, because he didn't see it before,
Yeah.
and they added it after when it was actual closing date. And I said, remember when we had this conversation, we had the appointment, we went over that, I was only able to negotiate the 2.5, there was a difference, so that was my difference.
Yeah, and
So
you
here's
keep it.
the thing. To Kathleen's point, it's probably a good idea to include the buyer brokerage agreement, especially when the buyer is paying some of the costs. Yeah.
So, and Daisy, in your example, did the buyer, so they came to close with additional funds, then they showed up with, and they wired?
Yeah, because the first
0.5%?
scenario, when, you know how they give up something to kind of look at as an estimated closing cost?
Yeah.
Well, they didn't add my fee, the difference in there, because they only had what it was already on the MLS at that time. So they had to obviously revise it in the closing one. I guess he didn't notice it afterwards, and once he was signing, he didn't see the difference on there because he already had a amount of wire is supposed to go to, right? And then he seen it, and he called me, I said, well, remember when I called you and you had to sign the difference?
Did he have a loan?
Correct, what's that?
Did he have a loan?
Yeah, he did have a loan.
So he paid that difference out of pocket?
He did.
So how does that not mess up potentially the ratio?
Well, my client was more
It doesn't
more
affect the
than
qualifying.
adequate amount of money to take care of the difference.
It's not gonna mess up your ratio, it's gonna be money out of pocket.
Correct.
Yeah, you're gonna need to make sure your buyer has money out of pocket, not your ratio. I mean,
It doesn't affect the
So you have to
the
talk to the
loan at
lender
all.
to make sure they're
Part of
able
his
to.
closing
But it
costs.
affects their cash balances. I just want to.
Absolutely.
It doesn't affect. What's that?
When they're doing something, it can only go down, not go up. They can't pay over what everything's already been.
But they did. Built it in at.
Not lender, it's not lender's fees. It's only lender's fees that mess that up.
So it sounds like you need to know, as part of the pre-qualification, how much funds the buyer has available to, because otherwise you don't want to leave them with a lender and you not have the information when you're, wanting to get a commission from them.
But that's why it's an MRPA between the seller and buyer.
Damon.
Yeah, you need to know your lender know all the costs that the buyer's gonna have, because they have to know if they have the funds to close. It's just a difference of a ratio versus money that comes to the table, that's all.
Once you come to terms on a contract with the purchase agreement and the counters, you need to let everybody know. You need to let the lender know that the buyer is paying 0.5%. You need to let the title company know that the buyer is responsible for half. You need to let your buyer know.
Hey, the other thing.
The buyer shouldn't be surprised.
Hey, on that closet Linda has in there, I heard that's not allowed.
You heard it's not allowed?
I heard it's not allowed.
I've heard that as well. That's why I
Not
checked.
making open-ended amounts for you to collect.
Say that
With
again?
that. You cannot leave an open-ended amounts.
Yeah, that's why I'm checking.
Additional clause that you just put in there saying that if the builder's offering more, that, from what I've heard, that's going to get us in trouble, because whatever's on that buyer brokerage representation agreement is the number that you're allowed to collect.
The max.
You would have to go back to the buyer and ask, hey, the builder's paying a bonus. Will you allow me to collect this? And that would be done via change order, or hopefully they're creating one.
So you can't
Right,
automatically.
and that way the buyer can approve you accepting, that's going to be the best vehicle,
Could you
but not to
say-
do it in
sounds like
advance,
you're
and not to
getting
leave
it
an
done
open
up.
signature.
Yeah, I'm getting it done up front, but
Could
it
you just
can.
add up to 4% on her verbiage?
Ricky.
So one of the ABR classes that I took, the person teaching the class said, call the listing agent on the property that your buyer likes and ask them what the seller is willing to pay.
Okay, so the question was, and this came up a lot, is when you're writing an offer, or maybe even when you're showing homes, call the listing agent to find out what is being offered.
Hopefully you guys pick up all your phones. You put it in agent to agent remarks.
So, no, you can't put it in agent remarks. So you call the agent to find out, but the problem is, that was fine when on the listing agreements, they were putting the commissions for the seller, or the listing agent, and the commissions for the buyer's agent. They've got rid of that. The only commission in the listing agreement is for the listing agent. So you're going to have it, when you're going out on a listing appointment, you're going to have a conversation with the seller. But most of the time, you're not going to have, yes, I'm gonna pay 2.5% or 3% or whatever. You're going to, when an offer comes in, we're gonna negotiate it at that time. So picking up the phone and calling is not the best thing to do now.
I went to.
Hey, visitor.
Hi, my name is Debbie. I'm from EXP, so thank you for allowing me.
Now
to
there's
come here.
one group.
Yeah.
Thank you. Nobody beat me up, so thank you. I've been to several of the ABR classes, and one of the things that they did discuss is, number one, whatever you put on the broker's agreement, if you're saying 3%, and if you go to a new build and they do over, then that money actually goes to the buyer. You don't get that as the agent. They said we can't go in there and write it up. I mean, that's what both of them, the classes that I've attended have stated. And then as far as the listing agent, they were telling us that we cannot call them and ask them, and what the listing agent should be telling us is that, yes, bring an offer and I'll discuss it with my person, because
the second part is correct. We still can't call.
Well,
we
said
can call a listing agent for any reason at all.
they said you can call, but they said if you call and if the listing agent disclose that, they'll be in violation of what our contract.
Here's the thing. It's not binding. If they tell you 3 bananas and then the counter back and forth and it ends up being only 2, that 3 is not binding.
Right. Right.
Regarding if the seller wanted to pay commission. I also just watched a video from Lexi and Rob from LBR that said you could put that in the additional comments. And I just watched that video yesterday.
Additional terms of the
listing agreement?
Yes, where if the seller agrees, yes, I'm gonna go ahead and pay a commission and I'll pay 2.5%. They said you could put that in the additional comments where it says seller is willing to pay 2.5%. And also,
the additional terms of the listing agreement.
Yes.
Okay.
It's still not binding. If the buyer calls, the buyer's agent calls the listing agent and they say, yeah, we'll pay 2.5 bananas, it's still not binding.
The seller signs it.
Or the buyer doesn't have access to the listing agreement.
No.
So I've heard the exact opposite of that. Why don't we have a co-op section in the listing agreement if we could write it in? Why don't we have it in there if we could write it in?
What do you mean?
Why do we not have a co-op section on our listing agreement if I can just go to the additional terms and write in, seller won't offer a co-op? We're exactly going backwards of what we're not supposed to be doing.
The reason why they left that out is, again, it's opinion, it's Lexi's and Rob's opinion. But the reason why they left that the co-op out of there is because listing agents will go in there saying, well, we have to offer something if you want to get your home sold. That's what got us in this mess in the first place, is that kind of thinking. So it's a negotiated in the purchase agreement. Damien.
Is Zillow or Realtor.com or anything like that working on putting commissions in there on their website?
The question is Zillow or Realtor.com, they can be there. Commissions can be in Zillow, they can be in Realtor.com. Where are they going to get it from? They're not going to get it from the MLS.
From IDX, so
yeah.
If the data's coming from IDX.
But they can't get the buyer's commission out of the MLS anymore. So it would have to be the actual listing agent giving them that information, which is fine. Here's the settlement was commissions cannot be put in they can't be part of the MLS. Can they be a sign writer that says 3%? Yeah.
Yes,
could it be on your website that's not connected to the MLS? Yeah. The commission can be anywhere.
On flyers and everything?
But
Yes.
how do we put welcome all buyers?
What's that?
Can we put welcome all buyers?
Where?
In the listing.
No.
Okay.
I mean, of course, it's a listed property, we welcome buyers.
So I have a question, Mark. How do, so you're saying we could put it on our website, we could put it on a sign, but how do we have documentation that the seller is willing to give that?
You never
Because
do.
we
don't.
can't put it in the listing agreement.
Put it in your communication log and have the seller sign off.
Okay, perfect. So I read this to you this morning,
But I said I was gonna check it.
okay,
Just
yeah.
real quick though, Lynn, I want to say something about that on the listing side, Mark, and I apologize, but you guys have to think a little bit deeper than just this seller offering a co-op. It's possible that you start misrepresenting your sellers by holding them to a co-op, and you don't even know what an offer looks like yet. So unless there's specific terms where you might see a seller say, and this is what we're teaching, is that you might have a seller say, yes, I'm willing to offer 2.53%, whatever, at full list price offer, no closing costs, this and that. Otherwise, if you're getting your seller to say, I'm offering 3%, you're misrepresenting your seller because there's an offer that's gonna come over and it could be $20,000 under list price, and hey seller, you're gonna pay 3%. Well, hold on, what's just happened here? Could I have paid less? Well, yeah, you could have, but that ship seldom met, and we're gonna be right back into a lawsuit with the seller suing us because they paid again 3%, and they could have negotiated something less.
Best practice is when you are on a listing appointment, just let them know that it's now going to be part of the purchase agreement. We will negotiate that at that time.
So that net sheet is gonna be very important.
Correct.
Net sheet is really, especially when you receive offers, do a net sheet for your seller. Absolutely, great point, Paul.
Yeah.
I have a question. Do we think, and I'm sure every lender is going to be different, do we think lenders are now going to be having conversations with the buyer about a potential paying, anywhere between 1% to 3%? Do we think that it's an appropriate conversation? Can they have that conversation with them?
So I just spent 12 hours in a car with a lender.
Oh, jeez.
It was painful.
12 hours.
It was my brother. We went up to Utah, and this is a conversation that, part of the many conversations that we had. He wanted to keep talking politics. I'm like, I'd rather talk real estate than politics. I'll talk anything but politics. Anyway, so lenders are having those conversations with their borrowers.
Okay.
Thank you. So in my presentation, I do say 4 bananas, 5 bananas, 6 bananas. Then when we meet, we can decide what we're gonna pay the buyer. I might tweak it a little bit, but
We can't do that
No,
anymore.
you just say, this is what I work for.
Gotcha.
2 bananas, 3
Take that
bananas,
out.
whatever it is. And then when we get an offer, they're going to ask, and we'll negotiate it at that time.
Right.
So this is going forward, now how about all the listings that we have that have
Great-
already been
great point.
discussed?
So the question is, what about the current listings we have? How do we notify those sellers what's going on? And my understanding is that LVR is working on a form for that, an addendum that we will provide to our sellers explaining the situation. So hopefully we have it soon. Personally, my own personal opinion, I think they jumped the gun here and not having all the necessary forms, because I'm surprised you guys haven't asked this question yet, is what about rentals? What about rentals?
Can we use this temporary?
They're
You
temporary.
guys, a couple of things on that buyer broker agreement, Mark, if you guys go into that commission section on the buyer broker agreement, scroll back up, because this is a big concern as well. Right there. So that clause underneath that commission,
Right.
right? They're probably gonna be removing that, from what I'm understanding from that agreement, because that's another lawsuit waiting to happen.
Here's the other thing. This section right here is where the transaction fee is supposed to go. So this line here clearly needs to be longer, so they're working on that as well.
That clause underneath, real quick question, Mark, for a buyer that I show a home to, and this is gonna be for all of us, and we need your guys.
You're talking about this clause
I'm
here,
talking about
right?
that clause being revised. I'm the one that brought that up at LVR and with Jeff Lavelle and all them, and because it's too open-ended. It says any property the buyer buys 90 days, 180 days. So what's the purpose of the expiration of the contract? Is the buyer, what the buyer's gonna say. But I work with a buyer, I show them a home, and I have a 90-day clause that says any properties I've shown the buyer right? If they go out and they haven't signed another valid buyer brokerage representation agreement, they go and buy that home within 90 days, I'm due a commission. That's the language that we need you and Realty One Group, possibly our attorneys, to get behind to be able to add whether to additional terms or something, because what's gonna happen is you have a buyer that sits down now, they're gonna have to pay 1%, 2% based on negotiations, and they say, okay, let me think about it, and they go around the back door and call another agent, call the listing agent and say, hey, will you do this for me for 1%? Or whatever, right? And so that's the clause that will protect us, not that clause there. So we need that language. How can we get that language produced by you guys ASAP with a stamp of approval?
So when you brought it up there, did they say they were gonna?
They said they were gonna modify this, but talking to Roberts, like, we're probably gonna remove the whole thing. It's in attorney's hands right now. I'm surprised they even put that on the form. I'm shocked, but they should have put language, what language I just said, on that form to protect us, and we just need, but they're pushing it to brokers, so that's where we need to, you know, you guys just call Mark every day, every minute, every day. So we're protected, because we do need a level of protection, you know, at least for the buyer awareness, to say buyer, you can't just skirt me. I've shown you 20 homes, you can't just skirt me and go around and call a listing agent and get this property without paying a commission. We're gonna have to have a further conversation, right? That's important.
Yep, absolutely.
Mark, I know a lot of people haven't even heard of this yet, so it's kind of like, is this kind of a
What? She says she's heard of a lot of agents, haven't even heard about this. Are they
no, I mean, like on the seller, when on a listing appointment, you know, I'm like, have you heard about the NAR? And they're like, no, so they're perfect.
Yeah, that's why you need to be, they all need to be a Realty One Group.
I have a question, Mark. The buyer brokerage agreement addresses the wire transfer warning. Do we still need to have the wire fraud?
Yep,
Okay.
absolutely. Something else on here that I wanted to mention is the cancellation. Read that over.
Yeah. And they could be in multiple.
Either party may cancel this agreement effective upon delivery of written notice to the other party unless buyer is under contract to purchase the property.
It's not exclusive.
We can cancel it, or the buyer can cancel it.
So the time period really doesn't matter.
Hold on, Rocio.
Do you mind explaining page 2, number 7?
Number 7, for best experienced buyers, encouraged to be accompanied by a broker on buyer's first visit to the property. That's pretty self-explanatory.
Right, yeah.
And to conduct all negotiations for the property in good faith and exclusively through the broker. Buyer understands that signing more than one buyer broker representation agreement for any overlapping period of time could expose the buyer to a liability. They can't get into more than one buyer brokerage agreement with multiple agents. Could expose to liability for paying additional fees. Buyer is not a party to any active exclude. That's just saying you're not currently party to any other exclusive buyer brokerage agreement.
How do we know if they're not lying to us?
The initial.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I guess there's really no way of really knowing.
No.
Okay.
Yeah. It's not like the recorded.
And then it says buyer is a party to blank.
Yeah.
Active, non-exclusive, so they could have like 10.
Yeah, non-exclusive.
Right,
Yeah,
which means that, yeah, I mean, this is obviously exclusive, but it could be like the Zillow one, which is
So
non-exclusive.
some states, some associations have 2 different buyer brokerage agreements, one exclusive and one non-exclusive.
Well, we don't have that, do we?
Not yet.
But it's similar to what I brought up yesterday with Zillow, right? So that would be a non-exclusive, this would be.
So we can't take more than what we write the agreement for.
Correct.
But can we take less, so?
Yes.
In a sense that if we make the contract for 5%, then it's up to me if I take 2.5.
Yep.
Then we're completely safe.
So should we just put 4, because that's like the most?
Yeah, whatever.
Like Visa, for example, says we'll go up to 4.
Yep.
So how do we do that? Do we have to do that in writing?
We got this.
We got this.
We got
Here's the thing, guys. This is nothing to be afraid of. It's just, it's the change in our industry. Our industry has changed many, many, many times in the 30 years that I've been doing this, and long before, but right before I got into this industry, there was a big change in the whole. I was rolling into a point here, Jeff. So there was a big change in representation. And prior to me getting in, it was a whole different type of representation. And they changed it. And all of those agents that were in the business at that time were in an uproar. And I marched in and like, well, this is the way we do things now. It's the same thing here. Those agents that get in now are going to think, this is just the way we do things now.
Right.
And we need to be flexible and realize that this is the way we do things now. Does that mean things aren't going to change? I guarantee you these forms are going to change. Whether it's the buyer brokerage agreement, the listing agreement, the purchase agreement, and they're going to add more forms. They better. Again, I think they jumped the gun and this is all we have so far. But with that being said, but we're flexible. We can handle it. We move forward. We can represent our buyers and sellers to the best of our ability.
Would you mind doing maybe a quick role play on how you might present this to a seller with, you're going to be getting this percentage as your seller's agent, however the buyer may add this into the, how would you?
We kind of already talked about that. So when I get to the listing, or the commission part of the listing agreement, I'm going to say, this is how much I charge, 3 bananas. Here's the thing, listing agents are going to be able to make more money.
Exactly.
Because it's going to be easy to put 3% in there, isn't it? Whereas before, I think I only want to do it for 4%. And then you had to. But so listening, so this is how much I charge. I charge 3%. Now what happens is, once we get an offer and then we pull up the purchase agreement, we show them the purchase agreement where it states right there. Where am I in? Page 2. Right there, top of page 2. I pull that out and I show when we get an offer, the buyer is going to ask for a commission for the buyer's agent. It's right there. So what we're going to do at that time is I'm going to do you up a net sheet based on all the costs of that very offer, and then we can make a decision on what way we want to go. Does that answer your question?
Very good, that's right. I have a question too. The best piece of advice that I got in any of those ADR classes, you know who pays the commission? The transaction.
Yeah. Yep.
That's really, I mean, if it
Transaction
doesn't
is-
happen, it doesn't happen.
Hey, and if you haven't gone to an ADR class, I highly, highly, highly recommend it. They're free. My favorite 4-letter F word. They're absolutely, now, if you want to be an ADR agent, it's going to cost me. But you know what? Go to the classes and learn. Jimmy Dave teaches a great class. Lee Barrett teaches a great class. And there's others as well. Just go to the class and learn.
The LVR?
Just to follow up on the question, if we're taking less, what kind of paperwork that we're taking less? What addendum, how do we have to document extra?
Well, can I ask you some of what we talked about this morning, if this is
All right, we need to wrap up. It's already a 11:45. Jeff has something that he wants to say.
I just wanted to say, I'm on MLS Quality Control. We have the tech forum coming up. It's great. I don't know if you've been last year. It's on the 23rd, 9 to 4 p.m. It is $40. We're gonna have a couple of great speakers there. I don't know if you guys know Glenda Baker.
Glenda Baker is amazing.
Look her
speaker.
up on her whole thing is social media and relationships. And then they have a gentleman, Jack Miller from T360. He isn't as much techie, but he has a lot to say about what we're talking about today and commissions and all that. and then I apologize if you said this, and I didn't hear it, that these have to be in 5 days. These buyer brokerage agreements have to be in 5 days, and they're gonna have to be uploaded into SkySlope. So it's not like you can be out there and 2 weeks from now, you go to a new home place, say, hey, I'll just change the first page to 5%. No, it's gonna be in SkySlope, so, and it has to be.
Just like any other form, your listing agreement, your purchase agreement has to be turned into the company via SkySlope within 5 days. That's mandatory. And you know what? It's not just company policy, that's statutes.
Yeah, it's statutes.
Statutes.
So does it have to be turned in when you write a contract, or just as soon as you're working with the buyer?
As soon as you're working with the buyer, as soon as you get that signed.
As you're not there?
And there's going to be new procedures, because currently there's no procedures to put a buyer broker agreement in SkySlope. There's going to be a new procedures for that. Last question. Better be a good one, Paul,
It's a
because.
loaded one because we also work with renters and we haven't addressed that.
Yeah, no, I did address it. No, you did not.
What about rentals? That's what you said.
They're working, here, they're working on the forms.
Now, quick question, if we're representing a tenant and there's no commission from the owner, and we said, okay, we're gonna get paid, $400.
How are we gonna?
From the tenant?
From the tenant.
From the tenant. But what if the tenant, but, I mean, they moved in and we still haven't gotten paid.
Because there's
Good
no.
luck.
Can you collect upfront?
So again, they're working on forms for that. It's gonna spell it out a little
We
bit.
can't collect any money.
You can.
Yes,
Non-advanced fees.
Mark, did you guys finish your,
I said Paul's last question.
did you guys finish your presentation? Oh, yeah. Did you guys finish your?